I knew where I wanted to go, and I knew I wanted a kind of arranged marriage, but not your usual style mafia boss. But I didn't want to start with the mafia boss, so I kind of went outward. And that's where I then gave him a brother who was a street fighter, and actually went into the professional boxing career. And then obviously he needs a trainer, which gave me book two's Grayson. It wasn't until I wrote book two that then book four came to life. He was the villain in that. And I was like, no, I like him. I can't kill him off. I'm going to keep him alive and give him a book. Um, so it was very much set up for that third book. Everything that happened led into that, of having a mafia boss that really doesn't want to be the mafia boss, was kind of forced into it. Um, and I guess all of my characters, is I guess morally grey as they may be, I like to make sure that they have like good parts to them, and they don't always necessarily want to do the things that they have to do. It's like more of a survival thing. So even down to Keller's street fighting, it was because they had nowhere to live. Like that's how they survived, and he kept Luca alive. So it was very strong on the kind of like found family level, which I know people within this kind of reader space enjoy. I'm a big reader. I'm a big reader in that space too. So I created this world down to every point of what I wanted to read, basically. Distance Forever was kind of a little novella to celebrate it being out a year. So it was 5 years on. The actual kind of end to the plot is in Detained. So he is the like standing mafia boss that took over from book three. Um, and she is a detective. Her father's the commissioner, and they're basically being like trying to take each other down. But in regards to plot wise, I couldn't have another mafia boss. Like nothing was going to happen to Frankie. And it kind of just came to a natural end. I did have a decision where I had introduced the characters from series two quite heavily into books three and four. So one, I was going to kind of continue it. But I thought actually it'd be a nice breaking point to move to Vegas, a new state. You've got a whole new family that I can then build on. And that's kind of the route that I'm going to keep taking. Throughout the series, I kind of end each book on a bit of a cliffhanger for the next one. Alexei is probably the most loved character of the series. So he is very neurodiverse, but at the same time, he can't read other people very well or emotions. But the brothers, who are the other books, the sister is the one person he kind of declared that he was going to protect from a very young age. He's learned to be able to read her almost better than she can herself. Um, and it starts with her being kidnapped and him trying to save her, and goes from there. But the kind of story along that line is her, without anyone realizing, dealing with eating disorders. So it's got a lot in that book, a lot of emotions, a lot of plot and action. Um, and yeah, it was just a kind of completely different book in the series. Maybe slightly softer than the other three. I would say dialogue is still important in the action scenes. That kind of, I think, sets it up. You can get a lot through that as well to set the tone. Um, and also, I find early on kind of working out what kind of aggressive or violent nature my character has. So you can know how he would react, because you don't want them all to start doing the same thing. That you'll have some that are a lot bigger than others, and really dialing that down helps. So in the book that I'm writing now, they're really into knives, not so much guns. And it's then you can research around that. You know, best places to kill someone quickly, make it hurt more, torturing. And I try and make it as visual as I can. It can be on the gory side, but I haven't had a problem in the romance space of people saying it's too much. It's kind of expected. I do keep pushing boundaries with that to try and find a good place, because I don't know how far you'd want to take it. I mean, I've taken it very far, but it's where you're comfortable, I think, writing. And if you become uncomfortable, the reader will probably notice that in your writing. So only push it as far. If you start cringing, probably stop, um, and get creative. I find mixing them up. Because if you're writing series and stuff, you're going to have a lot of action scenes in Mafia. Like, that's what people want and expect. So I get very creative with, I think, what would be in the room, what could they use, how many people are there. Um, and you don't have to necessarily describe every single person that they're killing in great detail. You can skate around that a bit and really focus on kind of what they're doing, what happens when they do it, um, and then explain the aftermath that they can then picture in their head. So when I was writing Claim, the same as when I was doing Detained, I find there is a lot more pressure because you've got to tie everything up in a nice little bow, but also make sure their story is as strong, if not stronger. I personally like to think I finish the series on kind of a really strong note. Um, so the pressure is there, but I do make sure I build these characters up in the first three or however many books, either to be kind of mysterious, so you don't know much about it, so it's a surprise for the reader, or they're kind of larger than life and people are really excited for their book. Um, and I do plot out what their story is going to be before I even start book one. So I have a rough idea of kind of where it's going. And obviously the plot for the Mafia kind of has to be tied up. And that's kind of the main thing, is ending up going back through three books to work out that, you're calling the same person the right name, things like that. Um, but yeah, they're normally actually the books I enjoy the most, because they're normally the most action packed, and explosive. Characters that I'm attached to, I do I keep alive, because I'm like, you could have a book. I'm actually fighting with it at the moment. There's a character that would be perfect to kill, and I'm like, I don't think I can. I don't know. I'm going to see what happens. But there has been a few. For example, Kai, um, who was in book four, Beneath the Mask. He could have had the perfect book actually, but his impact of his death was needed. But it was kind of sad to write. And I do make sure that I kind of write it in a way that I'm kind of like, oh, okay, I'm a bit sad now.